What a thrill to be back with Dr. Mittleman. Thank you so much for being here. And this incredible segment, we're getting so many folks chiming in. They're loving the stories, they're loving the insight into your process, how you have created Middleman Eye. And it is because of, I think, from what you've told me, these incredible things that you're doing outside the office.
Well, when you do so many of the things that I do, it helps you to connect with patients, to understand patients, and helps them to understand you and connect with you. It creates a bond almost instantaneously so that you can become friends with your patients. And when you understand each other, whether it's in the office or in the real world, everything is a nicer place and goes better.
I agree wholeheartedly. And of course, it goes to another reason why Middleman Eye is so very successful here in Palm Beach County with 2 offices in West Palm Beach and Palm Beach Gardens, Jupiter. You and I have spoken before on this topic, and I feel like our listeners are going to get such a trip, literally and figuratively. The foods that you have eaten through the years in your travels. You are an adventurer. You're very brave. You are the opposite of me. So, of course, I want to live vicariously. You've traveled the world. You've eaten some of the most unusual foods that we would never in a million years, but no judgment because people eat what they need to eat for their nutrition. Just kick us off with one of the stories.
So there are a lot of foods that I've eaten that many people would not consider unusual. Alpaca, deer, antelope. But when I was in Japan for the first time, I ate some food that most people would never consider eating. So one of the things I ate was horse. I had cooked horse. And many people would say, well, we ride horses, we use horses as friends, as therapy animals. But in Japan, they eat horse. So I was in a restaurant, there was horse on the menu, and I'm not one to shy away from a challenge, so I said, bring it on. I am not having cooked horse again. It was gamey, it was tough. I really don't understand why people eat it. But that didn't deter me from the second time I was in Japan when they had horse meat sashimi on the menu, raw horse. And that really wasn't bad. It was like eating prosciutto or some other kind of raw meat. It took a while, a deep breath, and went down nicely, and that I would have again.
Let me ask you a question. Now, is that a peasant food? Is that just for survival type of food, or is that a delicacy in
That's
Japan?
just a normal food.
Just something that would be on any given menu.
So people eat it. It's not in every restaurant. So, for instance, when I was in Japan, I had a tofu tasting menu, and they had everything made of tofu. Tofu consomme, tofu steak, tofu ice cream. You don't find that everywhere. You don't find horse everywhere. One of the other things I ate was perhaps one of the most alarming foods I ever ate. I was in Hiroshima, and it's a very moving city because of what happened with the bombing. But the people have a resilience. They have a great way of looking at life. And they do a kaiseki feast. A kaiseki feast is multiple courses. It usually highlights the delicacies and the foods of the region. It's usually fresh food. And it comes in courses, 7 to 10 courses. It was Japan. It was pre-Google. I had absolutely no idea what I was eating. And they bring me the 5th or 6th course, and it's a shot glass. Looked interesting. Had a little bit of spices and seasoning in it. I picked it up, and I looked at the waiter, and the waiter motioned to me just to down it as if I would down a shot. So I downed it. It was slimy. It was chewy. It was rubbery. It was disgusting, and it was raw chicken.
Ooh.
And I spent the rest of the week thinking, salmonella, salmonella, I'm going to die. And of course I didn't. There are many foods I would eat again. I am never downing a shot of raw chicken again.
Wow. That is pretty astounding. I mean, look, I've learned not to judge other cultures and what they eat. I just think it's elitist. I think you have to, understand that things happen in other parts of the world that will not experience or understand. So, what is another of your travels, and what exactly did you eat? I think you told me this one about Vietnam.
So, Vietnam is a wonderful place to visit. It's a very long country. Because it's so long and narrow, there are all different kinds of foods and delicacies and regional cuisines. And one of the regional cuisines in Vietnam is to eat dog.
Oh, so that's not urban myth. That if how you always say, if you go to an Asian restaurant, be careful, they're serving dog. You know how people talk. So this is actually something that is
This is actually true.
Okay.
This happens, and this is a normal day-to-day part of the cuisine. So it's not all of Vietnam. As I said, there are regional cuisines. Dog is eaten in northern Vietnam in an area called Sapa. Sapa is not very touristed. It's several hours north of Hanoi, and in order to get to the region where people live like they used to live, you have to go off-road, in a four-wheel drive, on dirt roads and sometimes no roads until you get to villages with no electricity and no phone service. They live in wooden houses that are raised on stilts. And so, of course, I had to go here. And it was lunchtime, and they were all excited. Here's the Westerner. They don't get very many visitors. And I said to the guide, have them bring me something that they eat here. So they brought me a plate with meat prepared 4 kinds of ways. And I said, what is this? And he said, it's dog. And I said, dog? Dog? What kind of dog? Well, dog, they don't distinguish. It's just dog. And so as they're serving, more and more people are gathering around until there are about 50 people to watch the Western white man eat dog. And honestly, it tasted like anything else. It didn't taste unusual. And what I usually tell people is that although it was quite tasty, I had grilled dog, dog fricassee, breaded dog, and dog stew. I tell them that the poodle was very tender, but the bulldog was tough.
Oh, my gosh. So do they have dogs as pets, or is that a luxury to have a pet for a dog?
So these dogs are actually not pet dogs, so I'm told. They're actually raised like you would raise a cow or a pig or a chicken or a goat or a duck for the food chain. And they're grown in the very north of Vietnam or the south of China. There's free trade across the border, or at least there was. And so some of them do have pets. There are cats, there are dogs. There are more cats in these villages to catch the rats. That is one food I've never eaten is rat. But they do have pets.
Okay, that's fascinating. And again, it's called survival. And I know that we all, when put in a situation, and this is what is available for your protein source, and you're not going to get as picky as you are.
Some of it is survival, but some of it is just natural culture. So we all have our beliefs and our mores and our value systems. And that's different throughout the world, and that's what you learn. So they're not eating dog because they need to survive. It may have started out that way, but they eat dog as we eat cow. We have vegetarians here. I'm sure they have vegetarians there, but not in Sapa. They are not going without their dog.
Okay. Oh, my heavens. I was talking to my husband after our last segment, and I said, I could talk to Dr. Mittleman, I think, for the next 20 years and never hear all his stories, because you started traveling so young and you're such an adventurer and you're just brave. That's the only way I know how to put it. What was the story with India?
So in India, we were traveling around the countryside. When most people think of India, they think of crowded, dirty cities, teeming with people, and there are areas like that. But India is a huge country. They have beautiful countrysides, they have forests and streams, and you wouldn't know you were in India. So I was traveling through an area near a place called Orcha, and there was a roadside stand selling food, and I was hungry. We didn't have snacks in the car. I now travel with protein bars for this very reason. But I said, "Oh, what are they selling?" And he said, "Well, they're selling fried snacks." And I said, "Okay, I'm game for that." And we stopped for the fried snacks, and I bought a little bag of the fried snacks. I couldn't really quite tell what they were, and I bit into one, and it was crunchy, and it was fried. I'm not really sure if anybody really doesn't like fried foods. They may not be able to eat it, but they were delicious. And I looked at the guy and said, "What are these?" And he said, "I don't know the word in English." And so he started to describe that these animals come out at night and they make noises when the sun goes down, and it sometimes is so loud they keep people up at night. And they were cicadas.
Oh my gosh.
Deep fried cicadas.
Well, you make the point. Anything fried really, is going to make it taste delicious.
But it's not just fried. So when I was young with my dad in Tunisia, I had chocolate-covered bumblebees.
Oh my. Now, chocolate's another thing. You can put it on anything and I'll probably eat it.
And that's exactly it. I love chocolate. I will eat almost anything chocolate, fried chocolate. I was in Colombia at one point, and they have ants on the food. And there are lemon ants, and there are pepper ants, and they use these as seasoning.
Wait, hold up. Where were you for this?
This was in Bogota.
Okay, so they take ants and they season them, and then they put them on top of food?
No. I don't know really how they kill the ants.
Okay.
But they're not walking around on your food.
Okay, good. That's good.
They grind them up, and in some places they don't really grind them up that well, so you can see them. And the lemon ants give it a lemon zest.
Oh, my
And the
goodness.
pepper ants give it a pepper zest. There are about 6 kinds of ants, but there's only so much you can eat at a setting. So I had the lemon and pepper ants. They do stick in my mind.
And again, a great source of protein.
They are a great source of protein and tasty.
Wow. Back to India. I love Indian food. My husband and I will go out of our way traveling to go to a great Indian restaurant in the States, of course, because we're not as well traveled as you. Did you have an amazing meal in India that is so memorable?
So I have a memorable meal, but not because it was amazing.
I should have known.
So I am not a big fan of Indian cuisine. I will eat it. I do love spice, but I like Thai spice and Chinese spice. I don't love curry or Indian spice. It was New Year's Eve. I was at a fairly fancy hotel. It was in the Taj chain, and they didn't have anything to eat except their New Year's Eve gala. Spectacular. And so I went to this with the person I was traveling with. We got there about 8 o'clock when it started, and they had entertainment. They had wonderful dancers. They had some musicians, and it was really quite a great evening. And now it was about 10 o'clock, and I was getting hungry. I had to leave at 5 the next morning to go track tigers, pre-dawn tiger tracking.
As one does.
Well, that's what you do on New Year's Day. You go find a tiger for good luck. And so I called our waiter over, and I said, "Dinner? When is dinner coming?" This was about 10 o'clock. No dinner, 10:30. No dinner, 11 o'clock. No dinner. And I finally called over the maitre d', and I said, "I'm hungry. I have to wake up in 6 hours. We need food." And he said, okay. Food is not being served until 1:30. Apparently at New Year's at midnight they have celebrations and everybody dances, and then they all sit down to eat about an hour and a half after the celebrations subside a little. So he brought over a steak and vegetables, which was what was on the menu. The steak had probably been cooked 3 years before. I could have eaten my shoe and it would have been more tender. The broccoli was more like broccoli puree without meaning to be puree. And I took a bite of each and said, I'm going to bed.
So not good.
It was not good, and I am not going to a New Year's Eve spectacular in India again.
Okay.
I will eat a protein bar.
All right, note taken on that. All right, so let's see. Where in the world is Dr. Mittleman? How about, let's see. How about Peru? I can name any place on the map, basically, in the world, and you've been there.
So Peru is really an interesting place with lots of different foods, also lots of different cultures and cuisines, and I love it there. In fact, I'll be going to Peru again at some point very nearby. They have all kinds of odd foods. The most odd that most people know about is something called cuy asado, and I'll be looking forward to eating that again. Cuy is guinea pig. Asado is roast. It's roast guinea pig. That is the closest I've ever come to eating a rat.
Wow.
And it's very interesting. They serve it up. It's not quite a delicacy, but not quite a common food. It's a food you eat at special occasions. And picture this. They grill the guinea pig like they serve a whole fish on a plate in many places. They serve the entire guinea pig. And it comes to your plate sprawled out like a guinea pig that was pressed. And you see its poor little arms and legs with the claws and his tiny little eyes and little ears.
Gosh.
And you're supposed to eat everything except the head.
Good to know.
It is difficult. And so I equate eating guinea pig to eating iguana, which I have done in the Caribbean. There are a lot of bones, and there's very little meat. And whenever I eat one of these foods, I always picture myself as a cartoon character nibbling off shards of meat from tiny little bones. It was not the best food in the world, but it was something local. One thing that was good in Peru was something called frutillada. I'm not much of a beer drinker. I prefer wine. But frutillada is a strawberry beer. My understanding is it can be made out of any fruit. But strawberry seems to be popular. And it is delicious and refreshing and full of wild strawberry flavors.
Oh, my gosh, that
with a
sounds
little
delicious.
bit of fizz.
Oh, I'm not a beer drinker either, but I would try that for sure. That sounds delicious.
It was wonderful. I've also had udder in Peru. Udder is interesting. It's got a very curious texture, sort of like calamari, and it's chewy, and they can grill it and they can fry it. I've had it both ways. But it is very chewy, and I found myself mooing at the end of it. So I'm not eating udder again.
I'm thinking of, my mom from the South, my grandmother would do pig brains and eggs. That was something that would be served in the morning. My mother would eat pickled pig's feet. So, now that you're talking about these different things, it's kind of sounding like, yeah, okay. Something for everybody, you know what I mean? So go ahead. I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just curious. I mean, the list goes on and on of all the places. Let's find out about Pakistan.
Pakistan is a wonderful country, not very well touristed by Americans. It took a while for me to find a company that would take me, but I did northern Pakistan. It was the safer of the two. I started in Lahore, and I went all the way up to the Chinese border. Interesting fact about the border crossing, it has the highest in altitude ATM in the entire world.
Wow.
It's spectacular with beautiful lakes. It's really wonderful. Pakistan is a dry country, except for one valley where there are people who are descendants of Alexander the Great. They have blonde hair and blue eyes, and they're allowed to have alcohol. So there are two food stories about Pakistan.
Now, is that where the Silk Road went through Pakistan? at
Correct.
some right, and so their food, I would imagine, would be really interesting.
So the Silk Road had many routes through Pakistan, through Tajikistan, through Mongolia. But yes, it did go there, as did Alexander's armies, which is why you find these odd religions, odd food choices, and people that don't look Pakistani. So, as I said, they're allowed to have wine. No one else in Pakistan, unless you're in one of 4 or 5 five-star hotels, can have alcohol. And I knew they had their own wine, and I wanted to have some. So I'd been hiking in the morning. I get to this beautiful restaurant overlooking a lovely stream, and they serve me my lunch. I forget what the lunch was. It wasn't very memorable. And they bring me a 2-liter bottle of Coke. And I said, I don't really drink Coca-Cola. I drink Diet Coke. I'm happy to have Diet Coke. And they said, no, this is for you. And I said, but I really don't want it. And the guy came over and said, no, that's your special Coke.
Yeah, wink, wink.
They give me a glass, and it's wine, and it is perhaps the worst wine I have ever had. It is just disastrous. Undrinkable. It's got a weird color. It has pieces in it. And at the end of the lunch, I said, you can have this 2-liter bottle of Coke back. Wink, wink. I don't really want it. And they said, no, this is yours. You paid for it. You have to take it with you. I don't really want to take it with me. Well, you have to take it with you. I said, well, I'll pour it out. No, we have hygiene laws in this valley. You can't pour it out. So I took it to my hotel room, and I thought, well, maybe at dinner I'll have a better tasting. It goes with beef better than it went with whatever I was having. No, it was dreadful. Took it in the car the next day. We were leaving the valley, and the guide went apoplectic. You can't have that. We can't go into Pakistan proper with this wine. We'll all be thrown in jail forever. It is illegal. So we had to stop by the side of the road. I ran in between some trees about 50 feet off the road, poured it out, and there went the wine.
Oh my gosh. Well, Dr. Mittleman, we are going to do another episode on your travels and food because it's fascinating. But I did want to ask, what are the foods that are actually healthy for our eyes here? Like, how can we set ourselves up for, the best possible eyesight in our lives?
Food is a really important and sometimes overlooked part of general health. We all know about food and cardiac disease, but people don't think about food and eye disease. Foods that help your eyes are similar to foods that help your heart. Low fat, low cholesterol diet, that's very important. People always say, eat carrots for your eyes. If you eat too many carrots, you actually can turn orange, and that can be toxic to the system. But greens, leafy greens, good vegetables are extremely important. Low sugar, low cholesterol, it's extremely important for your eyes as well. Part of the substrates in the eye that help you see are lipids, so you have to have a diet high in polyunsaturated fats, in balance, low in simple carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates are fine. So basically a Mediterranean diet that really is quite helpful.
So this has kind of been in the zeitgeist of late, is how sunshine, at least in my world, I'm learning about this, how morning sun, a little bit of morning sun and your eyes having that exposure also healthy for your eyes. What is your take on that?
So sunlight is never healthy for your eyes.
No, not even like if you're not directly looking at the sun.
So it is important to be outside in the sun. It helps your biocircadian rhythms. It can help you to sleep, help you to wake up. But it doesn't really do anything for the eyes themselves. If it's sunny out, you should always be wearing sunglasses. One of the other current myths is blue blockers for your eyes. Lots of people want to wear blue blockers, and I don't have a particular problem with that, but there is currently in 2026 no proof that blue light does anything to your eyes. Because it's such a big topic, most of the lens implants that I put in people who have had surgery do block blue light to some extent. but currently there's no proof that that does anything.
Well, I know that's a little off topic. This was our incredible food in your travels episode of Through the Eyes of Dr. Mittleman. But I just am excited to continue our conversation every Saturday at 8 a.m. right here. And you are just a treasure. And Mittleman Eye, if you're looking to get eye surgery, whether it's cataracts or the any of the other incredible things that are happening at your
Glaucoma,
office.
refractive lens exchanges, pterygium surgery, and even just regular eye exams. Because as with any other part of medicine, preventive health is the most important thing.
Well, I look forward to talking to you again, and we thank you all for tuning in.
Thanks again, listeners, for listening.